From the Four Rivers Cultural Center in Ontario, Oregon, we bring you the third annual Tradition Keepers Festival, highlighting cultural artists in Oregon's Treasure Valley and beyond. In this episode, you'll meet Director of Ballet Folklorico Mexico Lindo, Monique Duarte.
The essential elements that make up this form of dance just really include just a passion to learn more about Mexican culture overall. The dances have so much history to them, and they are similar, but they're not identical. And one thing that I share with my dancers is that there's so much more. The more you look, the more you find. And so thinking about Mexico as a geographical region, the parts of the country where the dances come from are all evidenced by the cultures that were there before that influenced what you see when the dancers perform. And so that includes countries such as Germany, Ireland, Africa, Spain, France, indigenous populations. Those are all evidenced in the dances, in the musicality, the instruments that are used. That comes through in the song types, definitely in the costuming, the essential elements for sure, shoes, definitely the music. And honestly, I just feel just a real passion, a desire to be there, a desire to learn more, and to just take it in as an experience and to just completely engulf yourself in what is Mexican culture and share that knowledge and bring it forth on a stage or, with your audience. I use the hashtag a lot, so much more, because the more you look, the more you find. And it is one and the same. And there are so many regions. There's states in Mexico are called regions in Folklorico. And so we talk about the regions, and I always give the kids the history, the dancers, they're not all kids. So I give my dancers the history of what was happening at that time. We talk about why the costumes look the way they do, what influences were there at the time, and how it's evidenced in the performances that we do. But thinking about what goes together with the dances and the music, it all comes through because some of the regions are similar because geographically they're located next to each other, but they're not identical. And so I tell my kids, think about you if you have any cousins or siblings. You are from the same recipe, but you're not identical. So it's similar, and there's definite similarities, but they're not the exact same. The same is true for the different dances that we perform. The regions might be next door to each other, and so they might blend and borrow from one another, but they're definitely not identical. When we put on that dance makeup and the hair goes back, there is something that happens. And I don't know who or what comes over us, but there is definitely a persona that you're like, okay, it's time to perform. And because our dancing is cultural, that also means that it's perpetual. So literally there is no time. And if it takes us 4 months to learn a dance, then it takes 4 months to learn a dance. And if we master that step in 3 weeks, then good for us, we mastered in 3 weeks. Thinking about how I learned, my classes are set up almost identical to how I was taught. In the warm-ups and the stretches, definitely in the connection with my students. My dance studio growing up was very much a home away from home. And I had friends that were from different schools and, environments. But when we came to the studio, we were all one, and we were all very connected. And that was the one aspect of it that I really wanted for my dancers. I wanted them to feel absolutely welcome. I wanted them to have a familial feel to it. And I wanted them to be able to know that it was their safe place. They could share. I wanted the parents to get along and have a place to just kind of collaborate and work and share. And these were the days of cell phones and pre-internet. And so the parents would sit outside and they would make hair pieces, or they would, add beadwork to the dresses, or they would add, sequins or whatever. Hot glue was always in the studio. And so that was a component that really reminded me of how I grew up in my studio. That was really important to me, to maintain that consistency, in that, the parents were a group that I would fall back on, and I would run ideas through and pitch things to and say, I'm really thinking of adding this to our repertoire. Give me your thoughts. That's very much what my teachers would do. It was very much just that community base. And that's where I got that terminology for our brochures for our biography is that we are community-based. I depend on my community. I look to them for resources. I look to them for support. And especially my parents, I very much depend on them and their advice and their input, because ultimately they're what drive our group. And yes, at the end of the day, I'm still a dancer and I can go anywhere and dance anywhere, but I want to be part of something bigger. And again, there goes that hashtag, that's so much more, because I want them to know that we are so much more and that we are connected in a way that comes down generations. And again, how it was taught to me, how it was taught to my dance parents and her mom, and so on and so on. And I pattern it exactly like that. So thinking about our studio, I have so many gifts and artifacts that people have gifted me, things that people have come back and brought me from their travels, things that I've seen along the way that I've purchased. One of my very, very favorite pieces is, it's called the China Poblana, which is a costume that's traditional from the state of Puebla. If you are from Puebla, you are called a poblano. If you're a male, if you're a female, you're called a poblana. Like the Chiles, the Chile poblanas, you can tell where they're from. So a friend of mine who was a dancer, she's American. Her husband is Peruvian. She is LDS. And there was a woman in her church. And the woman is Mexican and she was 92 years old. And she told my friend, oh, I have this dress and I think you should have it because your kids do Mexican dance. And my friend says, well, my kids aren't Mexican. Don't you think, I'm not that I don't want to have this dress, but would you like to give it to your daughters or your daughter-in-laws or your great-grandkids? And the woman said, nobody in my family wants it. So she gave it to my friend in a Walmart bag, rolled up. And my friend gave it to me and she says, Monique, you have to have this. Oh my God, you have to have this. So I enroll it, and granted, she's passed away and may she rest in peace. I never got a chance to meet her. She passed away at about 94 years old. Her mother made it for her when she was little. And it is stunning and incredible. And I wish I could show you. It's in 2 shadow boxes in my studio. When we moved from our other location, the first thing to come in was my Virgen de Guadalupe, my fresh flowers. That's a tradition. And then Senora Pilar Hayes's costume. And I have her blouse in one shadow box. I have her hand-beaded skirt in another shadow box. And then I have a typed up history of her story in a frame in between. And that is something that I absolutely treasure. And I have it right by the window so that when people pass by, I get a lot of foot traffic in my studio. When people pass by, I've had people stop and ask, what is that? Or they want to come in and they want to look at it. I am thrilled that it lives there and it has its own story. I have a salt and pepper shaker of a man and a woman doing the Mexican hat dance, and the paint is chipped and they're so old, but they're my absolute favorite. And you turn them upside down and it says 1941. So I have so many artifacts and things that are just so near and dear to me that I could have never possibly gathered on my own. And thinking about my studio, I'm so proud that it's such a community space. People feel safe there. People feel welcome there. People feel like they can sit and chat. There's so many secrets in the walls. They feel comfortable there. My kids are comfortable there. Parents know that if they're not always on time to get their kids, they're going to be fine. They're going to hang out with me and they're fine. The traditions from the dances are just one part of it. We are definitely embedded in the Nampa community. People recognize my dancers. I'm thankful that they recognize our name, but the history that has gone through there, I'm now on I'll call it my 4th generation of dancers. I still have students that come back to see me just to say hello. And that just means so much to me. That is absolutely priceless. How do you put a price on that? You can't. And so in that respect, I'm just so grateful. And our studio is its own little hub, and it's just the spot where people know it. And I have we're our own little directory. We're our own little resources. So if you need something in the community, chances are I have a link for you or a person to get in touch with or whatever. So definitely, a wealth of knowledge there that I'm happy to share. So I've had classes there. I've had toddler classes. I've had classes on how to make sugar skulls. I've had classes on how to create an altar for Dia de Muertos. We've had classes on hair pieces. We've had classes on how to apply dance makeup, in addition to the actual dance classes themselves. We've had parent meetings there. I've had yoga classes there. I've had flamenco, Azteca, mariachi. I tell people I am a dancer and I'm a dance instructor. My birthday is Mexican Independence Day. It doesn't get any more authentic than that. I love that every year for my birthday, I have performed and celebrated, and all of Mexico celebrates with me. It is the best. It is absolutely appropriate and very fitting. My license plate says Bailame, which means dance with me in Spanish. If I can't dance, then who am I and what do I do? I've got 2 college degrees, but my dancing has always been first and foremost of how I identify myself. And when I say I'm a dancer, people make the assumption of what kind of dance, and they'll say, oh, is it this or that? And I'll say, no, we do traditional Mexican dancing. And then they say, oh, what's that? That's an opportunity for me to have that conversation and go, well, let me tell you. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't. And if they do, we're going to get all excited and, get into such a excited, animated conversation. And if they don't, then that's my opportunity to share with them who we are and what we do. But aside from that, it is absolutely an extension of who I am, very much so. Everybody who knows me knows that's what I do. That's what I am. And we have over 20 regions in our repertoire. There are 32 states in Mexico, but we have over 20 regions in our repertoire that are completely and totally different. So, and those were dances that either were shared with me through my dance teachers in Southern California, where I'm from. I've taken workshops nationwide. I've brought in guest teachers to teach my dancers. I have a cohort of Folklorico teachers in California, and we collaborate and we network and we kind of, borrow ideas from and that kind of thing. So the support is definitely out there. The risk or consequence of not continuing these traditions is that they will die. There's a woman, her name is Amalia Hernandez. She started the Folklorico de Mexico in the 1950s. And she saw the dances that were indigenous in the state where she lived in the town squares. And when she was a young girl, she told her family that's what she wanted to do. And lucky for her, her family was in a position where they could afford fine instructors and musicians. So long story short, she took the dances that she saw and added a theatrical element, including ballet, backgrounds, professional live musicians, costuming, and she really brought it to the masses. I feel that she is a heroine for me, because had she not taken those dances that she saw and rebirthed them, people like me growing up in East Los Angeles would have never learned those dances. And my students in Nampa, Idaho would have never learned those dances had it not been for people like her recognizing the value of maintaining traditions. There are those that don't agree with her or her practices. I am of the opinion that, as with anything, there's pros and cons for sure. I feel that if these dances aren't maintained and shared, they will die. Technology is ever evolving, absolutely. In my opinion, there's no substitution for eye-to-eye contact, for sharing person to person, for learning in person. And that's rich, considering that we're doing this online and I'm teaching online right now. And there's that element of that physicality that I miss. I miss my students. I miss my students here at the school that I'm at. There's an element of teacher to student that can't be replicated with technology. There's just that lack of human connection sometimes, and it's just not the same. So thinking about traditions and maintaining them, I think it's vital to maintain these. And if it has to be where we continue the traditions by uploading lessons and sharing them online, so be it. The importance for me is just the maintaining of the actual instruction and the performance. And my fear is that if they don't, they will absolutely die out for sure. And there will be no one there to teach them in the future. Or if there are, the traditions that were passed down from one person vocally to another, or through paper, or through artifacts, won't be the same as just looking it up and taking a link, or taking a photo off of the internet, or an uploaded image or something like that. It's just not the same. That connection is not there.